days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Time for the 49ers versus Dolphins First Look. And let me just say this. There's a lot of things that are going into this game. And when it comes to the 49ers, some people are checked out. I'm sure Dolphin fans are probably feeling a very similar way about their team. Nothing has really went the way that either one of these teams were thinking they were going to go. The Dolphins had thoughts of grandeur, that they were going to be playing in the playoffs and they were going to have a shot to right the kind of short exits that they've had over the last several years with Mike McDaniel as the coach and get further down the line. Maybe they were going to be the ones that could get to the Super Bowl and get over the hump. They had Tua Tagovailoa. They've got explosive playmakers on the outside with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. They have all the running backs that you could possibly want. Raheem Mostert, Devin Achane. They got all the guys you could need, and it really hasn't worked out for them. And you look at the 49ers, and it's not that much dissimilar from the Miami Dolphins. Plenty of firepower on offense surrounding Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle. But there's also guys missing. Christian McCaffrey been dealing with injuries, and Brandon Ayuk out for the season, and nothing has really went that either one of these teams are really hoping. You look at the coaches, and the coaches are good friends. They coach together for a long time. Mike McDaniel is one of my favorite coaches, and I think he's a lot of people's favorite for the way that he goes about his business and how he answers questions and just his playful nature, but also his intelligence when it comes to football. He's a really smart guy and good individual, and his pressers are always some of my favorite. And him and Kyle Shanahan share similar beliefs when it comes to offense and when it comes to how to put together game plans and how to attack. And neither one of their offenses have went a positive direction this year. 49ers averaging almost 23 points per game, while the Miami Dolphins are under 20 points per game. So it just hasn't really clicked. And Miami, of course, had a rough patch where Tua Tagovailoa was out for a while, and I think that has really hindered them. But neither one of these teams continue to be healthy. Neither of them have played at a super high level, and most of the fan bases for each side have either checked out or just thinking to themselves, please lose so we can get a better draft pick. That's right. We're in a root for your own team to lose category for a lot of fans. Now, there are some fans that want their team to win no matter what. And if you're in that category, hey, I applaud you. I'm also one of those guys that likes to root for their team no matter what to win. But I also understand the people that say, hey, I want you to lose. And at some point, I think every single fan kind of comes to that grip on things where they're like, you know what? If we lost, it wouldn't be so bad because we can get a better draft pick. Because when things aren't going the right direction, everyone wants to turn the page. But that's not exactly how the players are feeling, right? Dre Greenlaw talking about going out there and playing with his guys and whooping and getting a win. That's the mindset of the San Francisco 49ers. Also, what's going on in the locker room after what happened with Devondre Campbell? What are the 49ers wanting to prove with this game? I think the mental makeup of this team and the guys who are on the team who, like John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan say, are made of the right stuff, are not just going to go quietly into the night. They're not just going to all of a sudden sit on the sideline. They're not going to all of a sudden rest George Kittle and Fred Warner, even though that's probably what a lot of us wish they would do. So this is an interesting game. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about who's going to be playing in this game as well. I'm really looking forward to it. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Belief Network, please give it a 5-star rating. And if you're going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA and college basketball, NHL to UFC, head to Bet Online today and don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, the game starts here. So it's always interesting to talk about the coaches, and we know about Mike McDaniel, and we know about who he is and what he means to Kyle Shanahan, and how they're kind of in a similar category, offensive-minded head coaches who also call plays, the way that they attack. Miami built completely off speed. It's built off Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and Raheem Mostert and Devin Achane and Jonnu Smith, who's been fantastic for them at tight end. In fact, he's one of my favorite tight ends to watch. I naturally find myself rooting for Miami for a couple of reasons. Number one, I really like Mike McDaniel. I think he does a really good job, and so I like rooting for him because of that. Also, there's a family connection. A lot of my family members are or were Miami Dolphin fans, so I always definitely root for them, except for when they're playing San Francisco, of course. And then you've got the Brock Purdy connection, right? Brock Purdy, his dad's favorite quarterback was Dan Marino. That's why he wears number 13. He liked Dan Marino as well. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic when it comes to that. But the one thing we don't really talk about is the defensive coordinator for Miami. Last year it was Vic Fangio, and there was a lot of comments about whether Mike McDaniel was taking little subtle shots with that play caller series where he talked about you have to be willing to make a change to bring in a guy. You got to put your ego aside, that kind of thing. Was he taking a shot at Kyle Shanahan in the Jordan Rodriguez interview series? And you know what? A lot of people were saying yes. Some people were saying no. Well, Vic Fangio goes for one season. The Miami Dolphins do not reach the pinnacle they were expecting to reach. In fact, their defense didn't really live up to expectation. And then Vic Fangio decided that he wanted to leave. And he finds himself up north, and he's sitting in Philadelphia now. And with that came a change of defensive coordinator. So all that conversation was McDaniel talking about Kyle Shanahan not willing to take on Fangio and make changes. All the while, Vic Fangio was going to go ahead and move on anyways. But the new defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins this season is Anthony Weaver. So this is Weaver's first year in Miami. He's been in the league for 20 years. So he's been around for a long time. And that's very important to remember, that he's been around for a long time. And most of that time was with the Baltimore Ravens from 2021 to 2023. That's where he was. And he was with them as a defensive line coach. And he's coached some really good defensive players and got credit for a lot of really big seasons, including Jadeveon Clowney, that 2016 to 2018 run, and J.J. Watt in 2018. So he's a very good coach. Their defense hasn't been phenomenal this season. They have definitely struggled in some areas, but in some areas they've been pretty darn good. Now, when it comes to run defense, they do a pretty good job, especially with Calais Campbell manning the middle. They give up just over 100 yards per game, which in the NFL is pretty good these days. Of course, you'd like it to be less, but they're still hanging in there as one of those teams. Through the air, they give up 204 yards per game, which is really good. Anything under 200, you're liking it. Anything under 175, where the Philadelphia Eagles are, and they're absolute elite defense. 49ers, just for reference, defense allows 181 yards per game through the air. That's really good. So you can see that he's done a pretty good job, Anthony Weaver has. And it hasn't been great. It hasn't been what their expectations were, but it's not bad. It's pretty good. And so the 49ers are going to have a tough test when it comes to the Miami Dolphins. And you always got to think about who's going to actually be on the field when you're having that game go on. And the 49ers have several players that have been dealing with injuries. And Kyle Shanahan did speak to the media, and he talked about the fact that, it does look like Trent Williams is not going to come back this season. So I think this one probably makes the most sense. He was still using, some things to move around, a little cart to get himself around. He doesn't look like he's going to be capable of walking that much quicker, let alone be able to get out there on the field and play. So Trent Williams' season is likely done. Now, Kyle Shanahan did leave open the chance for Trent Williams to come back if he felt healthy enough to play. I don't think that that's a foregone conclusion that he would come back. I think it might be smart just to go ahead and rest him. What are the 49ers playing for? They have 1% chance of making the playoffs. Who knows? They could win and they could go up, a little bit over the next couple of weeks. We'll see what happens. But I think for the most part, it's smart to go ahead and keep Trent Williams out. With that being said, that means Jalen Moore is going to be expecting to play for the San Francisco 49ers this season. So it looks like he's going to be out. He's looking like he's going to miss his 5th consecutive game and probably the rest of the season. Now, one other injury or a couple other injuries to note. Number one, Isaac Guerendo has been missing practice. So not only has he been dealing with the foot sprain that was the question mark last week before they played the Los Angeles Rams, but then he came out of the game dealing with a hamstring injury as well. And so that forced him to miss practice on Wednesday. So all the conversation last week was, will Isaac Guerendo play? And when it got time to suit up and all the information came out, it was such great news. Guerendo was going to be able to play. Well, now it looks like Guerendo may not be able to play in this cross-country matchup against the Miami Dolphins. So 49ers have some of the same question marks at running back that they had last time. That means Patrick Taylor Jr., Keyshawn Vaughn, who has been on the 49ers practice squad, but he's been with the team all season. And then the new addition that they added a couple weeks ago through waivers in Israel Abanikanda. So Abanikanda has not been active. Didn't expect him to be on that short week the first week. The Thursday game, there was a possibility. I thought maybe he would be the third running back if Guerendo couldn't go. Once Guerendo was able to go, it did seem like a foregone conclusion that Abanikanda wouldn't be capable of playing. They just didn't have the roster spot for him. But now this week, if Guerendo's not able to play, or even if he is, Abanikanda might have an opportunity as the 49ers look to see what the young guys got over the next 3 weeks, because he is going to be under contract for next season, and the 49ers have a talented player. They want to see what he can do. So I am very curious to see what he could do for the San Francisco 49ers in that game. And then there were several players who were limited at practice on Wednesday, including Nick Bosa, but he is expected to play. We'll see how that keeps going. Jalen Moore trending in the right direction, dealing with a little bit of an injury. Malik Mustafa and linebacker Drake Greenlaw all listed as limited in that game. So that's something the 49ers are going to have to figure out here pretty soon, but something that they definitely can work on. The good news is Malik Mustafa might be able to play alongside Talanoa Hufanga, and I'm super excited to see what that combination will look like for the San Francisco 49ers. We got to see Talanoa Hufanga and Jair Brown last week, but I really wanted to see Hufanga and Malik again, because it just feels like that could be a opportunity for the 49ers. And Kyle Shanahan talked about the fact he would love to have Drake Greenlaw come back next year and Talanoa Hufanga. And I think that's the way things are trending. I think that John Lynch and the front office is going to look for an opportunity to bring them back. And this could be a showcase of the 49ers safety room moving forward, getting Hufanga and Malik out there together. So it appears the shoulder and chest injuries are not as bad. He's not really dealing with the shoulder injury anymore. So that is really good. And, with Drake Greenlaw, he said that my knee was a little off, a little tweaky. I feel better this week. Luckily, we had a few extra days off, so I'm definitely feel better this week. Just doing everything I can to make sure I can go Sunday. I should be up, no doubt, should be able to go Sunday. So the 49ers are definitely happy about that. Now, just to go over and cover the practice report, the 49ers did not have Malik Collins. He was sick, so that's the reason he missed. Of course, Guerendo and Trent Williams, they're out. And then we talked about who the limited in practices were, but we can also add Nick Zakelj to that list as well. He's been dealing with an illness. Lots of things going on in Northern California when it comes to illness, so not really surprising. Some of the guys who have been hurt that practiced full, D. Winters, the neck injury that kept him out of the game, he's a full participant. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, he was a full participant even though he's dealing with a knee. Jair Brown left the game with an injury last week for a while with a groin injury, but he's back, and Aaron Banks with the elbow injury is back. Now, when it comes to the Miami Dolphins, they had a list of guys who did not practice in this football game. The tackle, Terron Armstead, he's out with a knee. Calais Campbell had a vet day, so he was just missing practice due to that. Dwayne Eskridge, the receiver, he's dealing with a knee injury. Tyreek Hill, he's got a wrist. They say they're just resting him, though. Jordan Poyer also getting a rest day, and Jalen Waddle dealing with the knee. Those guys are all expected to play in this game. So I don't think injuries are going to be the reason why the Miami Dolphins don't have, a full go of all their guys. But good news for the 49ers, where they're getting some of their guys back. and they really needed to. They needed to get some of those guys, back out there on the field, and that's what they're going to get. And like Dre Greenlaw said, they're focused on whooping Miami. That's what he's focused on. So I like to hear that, especially when you have, some of the conversations starting to come up as people are translating into off-season mode. Is they're starting to talk about contracts, they're starting to talk about draft, they're starting to talk about roster construction next year, and these players are trying to keep their mindset to let's go out there and let's win football games. But one thing that was interesting that I want to talk about is what Kyle Shanahan had to say about Talanoa Hufanga and Dre Greenlaw. He said, those are two of the better players I've been around and two of the better players on our team and two of the main reasons we've had success here we've had. Hopefully we can do everything we can to work out keeping them here because they're as much examples of 49ers as anyone I could think of. And so that's a big one. And then Shanahan had this to say about Huff. Huff, the person and his communication and just having him out there, I think was very inspiring. And then adding Dre the next week or 4 days later, one, how good of a player is he and how big of a difference does he make just from that? But the style of how he plays really adds to our defense. It makes everyone else better around. It's not just adding as a good player. And these are the things that are definitely huge. You go back, when did Robert Saleh's defense really take off and become very successful? It was 2019 when that defense became one of the best defenses in the league. And it's a direct correlation to, guess he was drafted in the 5th round, Dre Greenlaw. So Greenlaw steps in and you see the attitude of the defense change that year. Him and Fred Warner just played off each other. There's a physicality. There's an aggressive style. You can just see the way they talk, the way they walk, the way they carry themselves. They now go around hitting people a little bit harder, and it just kind of permeates through the rest of the team. You've seen Yammer Lenore doing it. You've seen the aggressive nature coming out. And then Hufanga wasn't there in 2019, but in 2022 and beyond, when he got there a little bit earlier than that in 2021, but you just saw Hufanga come on the scene and really make a lot of things happen for this football team. But the communication, like Kyle said, was huge. We stopped seeing as many breakdowns in coverage. Guys were lined up the right way. And you just got another guy that plays with his hair on fire. Some of the plays he made last week were absolutely tremendous. So those two guys are a main part in the 49ers' future, hopefully. But in the future of the team moving on this season too, as they play the Miami Dolphins, because the 49ers can't afford to have any mental breakdowns when you're going against the playmakers that the Miami Dolphins have on their football team. I mean, you just take one glance at their roster, and not only do you see one of the fastest running back rooms I think I've ever seen, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, Jalen Wright. Those dudes are all quick guys that can absolutely fly. Then you look at their wide receiver room, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Malik Washington, who we were all huge fans of coming out of college. Of course, it was Malik Washington or Jacob Cowing. Miami went with Malik Washington. 49ers go with Jacob Cowing. But speed on speed, and it's not done there. D. Eskridge, more speed. So it's very interesting the way that they go. Now, I would say one of the toughest things the 49ers are going to have to deal with this week is actually going to be dealing with Jonnu Smith. That is an absolute stud of a tight end. And so the 49ers are going to have to figure it out. Is it going to be a safety? I think sometimes it will. Is it going to be Dre and Fred? I think sometimes it will. They're going to have to put together a unique game plan to take away Jonnu Smith, while all the while keeping Tyreek Hill from absolutely going crazy and taking the top off, from keeping Jalen Waddle from stretching this field vertically and creating opportunities for Jonnu Smith in the middle of the field. They are a tough matchup because of that. You have to be able to generate pass rush and speed up the clock of Tua Tagovailoa. If you do, you're going to get opportunities where he'll make mistakes, or you can get him down and get a sack. He will turn over the football. So 49ers definitely have ways to get to the Miami Dolphins, but it's going to start with stopping that run game. If that run game gets going, Mike McDaniel will keep the pedal to the metal, and he'll run over you. And the thing is, we saw the Buffalo Bills get an explosive 65-yard touchdown because the 49ers missed a tackle. Well, you miss a tackle against these guys, it's all she wrote. You're not running them down. You're not catching them. These guys are angle breakers. There's ankle breakers that juke you. These guys are angle breakers because they're absolutely too fast for you to be able to keep up with. And A-Chain, and Mostert and Wright all have that ability to take it to the house every single time they touch the football. So it's all about being a good tackler this week. It's about making sure you stay in your holes and plug your gaps, doing what you're supposed to do, and slowing down that run game. Because if it gets going and they're able to tie that play action game together, the run game to the pass game, they're going to make a lot of plays for the 49ers. So, or against the 49ers. So that's one thing they've got to make sure they do, is don't let Mike McDaniel get going. So it's a pretty good offense there for the Miami Dolphins. When you look at the defense, Zach Seiler's been really fun to watch this year in the games that I've watched. Calais Campbell continues to just be, a real stud. I would say the weakness, if you're looking at the Miami Dolphins, has to be at the linebacker position, with Jordan Brooks and Anthony Walker and Tyrell Dotson, who they got from the Seattle Seahawks earlier on in the year. I think that is a opportunity for the 49ers, and that's why you got to be able to run the football against them. But Calais Campbell and those guys make it very difficult to be able to run the football consistently. So really curious about how they're going to be able to run the football with Patrick Taylor, if that's who it has to be. If it's not going to be Isaac Orendo, how can the 49ers get a run game going with Patrick Taylor and, with Keyshawn Vaughn and Israel Abanikanda? I think that's going to be really huge in this football game to see if they can pull that off. So that's going to be fun watching that, kind of happen, and the 49ers get to figure out, what to do against this defense. They've got some pass rushers as well. Chop Robinson out of Penn State that we were all fans of. I think that he'll be able to generate some pressure. Campbell, of course, does a very good job as well. So they have the guys that can do it on the outside. And then you look at the safeties and corners. Jalen Ramsey and Javon Holland. Holland at safety, Ramsey at corner. They just do a really good job, especially Jordan Poyer as well. It's a talented unit that the 49ers are going to be facing. But the 49ers are a talented football team. They have the guys to go out there and really put pressure consistently on defenses and get those guys the ball in space and make some things happen on offense and defense. So very much excited to see the 49ers versus the Miami Dolphins in this game. And, Dolphins have had some injuries as well. They're missing some of their big-time players. But they got enough guys to go out there and get it done. And they still have one of the best player names in the NFL in Storm Duck. It's got to be one of the best ones. So this is going to be a really fun matchup for the San Francisco 49ers versus the Miami Dolphins. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. If you're listening to audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.